Touchdown BC is sponsored by CFC. CanadaFootballChat.com is a national amateur football website and a source for high school and recruiting news in Canada. CFC's mission is to promote players, coaches, administrators, teams, and leagues from coast to coast. 40-plus local reporters write CFC's content covering Canadian, NCAA, and CIS recruiting, and high school players and teams across the continent. Touchdown BC is also sponsored by Chris Peckett. Veteran trial lawyer and football coach is now restricting his law practice to motor vehicle personal injury claims. Call his office at 604-519-6060 for a free consultation.
Welcome to episode 9 of Touchdown BC. We had some major games across the province this weekend with high school, community, and some big university games, Adam.
Yeah, no, I watched that game. UBC taking on Manitoba at home on Global, on national TV, covered 92% of the country, was able to watch that game. What a game it was.
It was a big game, and what happened in some of the high school games?
The high school regular season is over. Finished, done, finito. And next week, we'll witness the win or go home games, also known as the playoffs. Before we get to the playoffs, this past weekend, we saw some meaningful games being played. Most of these games helped finalize the 2015 BC High School playoff bracket. Now, let's not wait any longer. Time to get into the action.
New West taking on South Delta. First cue, Sun Devils' Michael Mann gets the direct snap, goes up the middle, and he is off, going 40 yards for the rushing major. South Delta up 8. Hayaks respond. David Penalver takes the handoff, finds a huge hole, compliments of his O-line, and goes 15 yards for the score. Tie game. New West's next drive, QB Jamie Sheeho finds a wide open Jeff Lugtu does the rest. New West up 15-8. Second quarter, the Hayaks are forced to punt. South Delta's Michael Calvert fields the punt from the 30, makes a couple defenders miss early, gets some friendly blocks, finds some room outside, and he will do the rest, going 70 yards to the house. We are tied up at 15s. Same cue, South Delta takes the lead. Grant McDonald gets the ball, then whoop! Ball comes loose, only for McDonald to regain possession and score. Third cue, it's New West running back Jordan Guzman getting the handoff, taking it outside, and Guzman finishes the play in the end zone, putting his team up. South Delta responds with a field goal from Doug Jamieson, making the score 24-22 SD. Late third, Jamie Sheeho executes a perfect read option play. He gets some massive blocks, finds some room, jukes a defender at the 5, and runs it in for the 40-yard rushing major. New West up 28-24. Fourth cue, the Hayaks look to put the game out of reach. It's Sheeho again, this time scoring from 21 yards out. Lots of credit should go to the Hayaks O-line. They played great all game. New West up 11. On South Delta's last drive, Sun Devils fumble. New West recovers. Game over. New West beats South Delta 35-24. BC, Notre Dame, 59th Archbishop's Cup. Early first, the Jugglers go for it on fourth down. Anthony Crescenzo tries to take it, but fumbles it inches out. Steven Moretto also stuffed. Huge stop. Next cue, Jacob Samuels hands it off to Michael Lee, and he pounds the rock in from 6 yards out to put the Irish on the board first, 7-0. Early third, Kieran Mitha hits a squib kick that pops right into the hands of Matteo Trigiano, and he's deceptively fast for a big guy, bringing the ball to midfield. But Notre Dame would be forced to punt. BC takes over, and that's when Michael Lee gets after it again, this time running through a seam into Juggler territory. BC on that drive would be forced to kick a field goal, Irish up 10-0. Notre Dame was forced to punt on their next possession, but Callum Macbeth blocks the punt. BC gets the ball from 2 yards out. Next play, Jasper Scheidel pounds it home. BC starting to pull away with the score 17-0. But don't count out the Jugglers. This is the Archbishop's Cup. Anthony Crescenzo throws a dart on the run and connects with Stefan Obertfeld, who gets tackled inches out. Very next play, Crescenzo takes it in himself for the score. Notre Dame back in it, 17-7. fourth quarter, and the Jugglers get tricky. Crescenzo hooks up with Steven Moretto, and he looks deep. And that's where he finds Mauro Giammaria. What a play! We got ourselves a ball game. Seconds remaining, and the Jugglers try the same trick play, but this time the Fighting Irish were all over it. This one's over. Irish win, 17-14 over Notre Dame. There was one more game played in the Western Conference. Mount Doug beats Belmont, 43-7. Here are your final standings. The playoffs are here and the Subway Bowl bracket is set. BC and Mount Doug get the weekend off with first round byes. New West will play Handsworth this Friday at Mercer Stadium at 7:30. Also on Friday, South Delta will play Mount Bougerie at Burnaby Lakes, kickoff at 4:30. This game will also be webcasted online at sportscanada.tv. And Notre Dame will visit Mowat Field on Friday to take on WJ Mowat. That one starts at 7:30. Handsworth versus Salmon Arm. Handsworth would need a win to clinch a playoff spot. First cue, Salmon Arm gets off to a bad start, fumbling this sweep play. Royals recover. Couple plays later, it's Royals QB Sam Thole finding Jacob Gazizada from 15 yards out for the pass, catch, then score for 6. Salmon Arm would respond. Kevin Schmidt puts this ball on a string and drops it in the arms of his receiver. He then goes 73 yards for the major. It would then become the Sam Thole show, first finding Julian Williamson, then finding his favorite target Jacob G for another passing score. Royals up 21-7. In the second half, Thole throws it up for Stephen Miller. He makes a great grab and takes it deep into Salmon Arm territory. The Royals then would punch it in from 3 yards out. In the fourth, Salmon Arm would finish the game strong, blocking this field goal and returning it 80 yards to the house. Handsworth would win this one though, 35-14 over Salmon Arm. The Royals are going to the ship. To the other Pacific games we go. With Argyle and Seaquam both winning, Argyle locks up first place in the conference. Unfortunately for Seaquam, their season is over. To the standings we go. Argyle and Handsworth both make the postseason. Argyle will travel to the Okanagan on Saturday to play Kelowna at 2 p.m., this one taking place at the Capital News Center. And as I mentioned earlier, Handsworth will play New West Friday at Mercer Stadium, kickoff at 7:30. Now here are your scores for the Eastern Conference. Terry Fox stays undefeated with a win over Centennial. Mount Bougerie beats Lord Tweedsmuir to clinch a spot in the postseason, and STM earns a first-round bye with a win over Kelowna. Final standings time. Terry Fox and STM both earn first-round byes. Kelowna hosts Argyle on Saturday at 2 p.m. Mowat will host Notre Dame Friday night at 7:30, and Mount Bougerie will play South Delta Friday 4:30 at Burnaby Lakes. For those fans not making the trip from West Kelowna, you can watch the webcast at sportscanada.tv. Now to the AA we go, starting with the East. Robert Bateman beats Pitt Meadows by a field goal. G.W. Graham gets the dub over Mission, and Abbotsford shuts out Rick Hansen. Now here are the final standings. G.W. Graham wins the conference and will host South Kamloops this Saturday at Exhibition Stadium, kickoff at 3. Abbotsford will play Pitt Meadows on Friday at 7 at Abbey Secondary. Mission will take a trip to the Greater Vernon Athletic Park on Friday to play Vernon. That one starts at 6. And Robert Bateman will travel to Kamloops to play Prince George Friday, 5 p.m. at Hillside Stadium. Now let's take a look at the Southern Conference scores from this past weekend. We had 2 shutouts with Langley and Holy Cross getting the George W's. Langley is your Southern Conference champ. Langley will host Belenis Friday 3 p.m. at McLeod Stadium. Holy Cross will play Windsor Friday night at Burnaby Lakes. Kickoff for that one is at 7:30. Also on Friday, Hugh Boyd will visit Carson Graham. That one goes at 3:15 p.m. And Mosscrop will take a trip to the island on Saturday to play John Barsby at Merrill Logan Field. Kickoff at 12:30. To the Okanagan Conference scores we go. Valley View beats West Side, and Vernon takes care of C. Fulton. Vernon goes 4-0 in conference play to win the conference. They will host Mission on Friday at 6, and on Saturday, South Kamloops will travel to Chilliwack to take on GW Graham at 3 p.m. Last but not least, here are your scores from the Western Conference. John Barsby goes unbeaten in conference play, beating Belenis, and Carson Graham takes care of Nanaimo. To the final standings we go. Barsby wins the conference and will play host to Mosscrop on Saturday at 12:30. Carson Graham gets a home game on Friday against Hugh Boyd. Kickoff for that one is at 3:15. Also on Friday, Windsor will play Holy Cross at 7:30. That one's at Burnaby Lakes. And Belenis will take on Langley at McLeod Athletic Park. Kickoff at 3 p.m. this Friday. Here are the scores from Tier 2 varsity. Earl Marriott beats Timberline, and Howe Sound gets the win over Spectrum. Now here is a look at the standings. Earl Marriott has clinched a playoff spot, and with only 1 week left, 4 teams are battling it out for the other 3 spots. Argyle Pipers QB Cole Theobald is this week's TDBC High School Player of the Week. Cole helped his team clinch a spot in the postseason with a win over Rutland. Now let's take a look at the final TDBC Top 5 AAA rankings. Terry Fox and VC switched spots from last week. These rankings can be thrown out the door starting this weekend because anything can happen in the playoffs. Win or go home.
Now it's time for the BC Football High School Report with TDBC insider Dino Jeremiah. Dino, huge games this past weekend, kind of cementing what the playoff bracket's going to look like. Let's start with the Archbishop's Cup with Vancouver College narrowly beating Notre Dame 17-14.
It was one of those games that anybody that's been associated with Archbishop's Cup, that rivalry between Vancouver College and Notre Dame, that's what it was all about. You know, a lot of motion in the game, close game all the way throughout, some big plays, and like you said, a narrow win for Vancouver College. So, but a great performance on both sides.
Staying in the West, we saw New West beat South Delta to get that 3rd spot in the West.
Yeah, New West continues to roll, continues to cause problems for teams with their offense, their unique style offense, and their team speed. You know, most people would have said, even including myself, would have thought the game was a little closer, but New West certainly handled it. Going to be really interesting to see how they do in the playoffs.
Now going to the Eastern Conference, we saw STM take down Kelowna for that 2nd spot and the 1st round bye.
That was a great game. Again, very close. I think it's one of the things we've talked about on this show several times. Parker Simpson certainly leading that Kelowna team. Can they come down now in the playoffs? Can they win in the Lower Mainland? Can they continue their success that they had throughout the season and continue this with a playoff run?
Everyone wants to know, with the playoffs starting next week, who's your favorite? And who do you see as a sleeper? Maybe not a sleeper, but maybe didn't finish in the top 2 in their conference.
I think that the team, having seen the teams this year, I still think Mount Doug is a solid team. From top to bottom, I know that College beat them over here with Mount Doug coming across on the ferry, but just with the athletes they have, if they are healthy, they're still a tough team to beat. Across the board. They can score from anywhere. Gavin Cobb, an amazing talent. So I still like Mount Doug to continue their run, their success over the last 3 years. And they've played through the playoffs. They've continuously been in the finals for the last 4 or 5 years. So this isn't new to them. It's old hat, the bye, the travel, the playoffs. So they're one of the teams that I continue to look for. And Terry Fox, solid in every position, offense, defense, and strong across the lines. The sleeper I would pick is somebody we talked about, and I don't know if it's much of a sleeper anymore, but New West.
Yeah.
Just because of the difficulty that they create for defenses with their unique style offense. Their defense plays really well as well. They take advantage of, they run a scheme, again, that takes advantage of their team speed. So again, New West is one of those teams that can create problems for anybody, including the two that we mentioned, Mount Doug and Terry Fox.
And that about does it. That is the BC High School Football Report with TDBC insider Dino Jeremia.
With the first signs of frost showing up outside and snow to arrive in the coming weeks in the valley, a cold winter is starting to emerge in front of us. But that's the opposite of what's happening in community football right now. With the final regular season week behind us in some leagues and a couple in front of us in others, the standings are really starting to heat up. Now let's get to the action.
Time for some Pee-wee ball. Chilliwack blue, Chilliwack red, right from the get-go. Ball slips out of Aiden Saunders' hands, red recovers. But Chilliwack blue would forget about their previous blunders. Joshua Caverly decides to right the ship. Takes the rock 40 yards to the house. Blue is on the board first. Next cue we go. Austin Wegner in the backfield, and this guy looks like a modern day Barry Sanders. He jukes, twists, and turns all the way home to tie the ball game up. But Blue get it right back, so you know what that means. Big Joshua Caverly just decides to do it all himself with a nice stiff arm in the open field and a broken tackle before his speed burst kicks in, leaving everyone else in the dust. But the Big Red Machine would move it downfield, about to score before main man Austin Wegner misplaces it. Blue recovers. Enter Trent Coates, spreading the field with three backs in the backfield. He goes right, looks around, doesn't like what he sees. He turns it right around and heads left, dodging every defender in sight. Hey, if he doesn't know where he's going to go, how are the defenders supposed to know? And almost like it was deja vu, Trent gets the ball and heads out right, this time going the right way and in for another score just like that. Nice blocking on the outside for him too. But Blue get the ball right back and they decide their trickery once more. Aiden Saunders holds onto it this time, but unfortunately, he finds the wrong colored jersey. Over to the BCFL Adam Jamboree we go. Chilliwack red, Chilliwack blue. Joey Saiba under center and he takes off to the left side with a little shake and bake before jumping on his own fumble. Next play, Hayden Streeling takes a snap before handing off to Saiba, the speedster, who dips and dives and dodges around defenders before his GPS accidentally tracks him into the sea of blue. After that, Streeling looks to hand it off to Saiba again, but he decides to hold on to it himself before bursting down the sidelines and getting tackled inside the 2-yard line. Red moving the ball real well right now. And why change a good thing if it works, right? Red runs the exact same play, putting them off to an early lead. But now it's Blue's turn, and Aiden Hewitt hands it off to Carter Dallas, and this guy is sneakier than sneaky. Look at him go. He goes right through the parting Red Sea and down the sidelines for a gain of 37. One play later, and it's going back to Dallas, and look at the moves on this guy. Seriously, this guy is deadly. It's never too young to send your highlight reels off to college schools, young man. Think about it. And right after that, Dallas finishes off what he started with, a well-deserved touchdown. So Red gets the ball back, and Saiba says, anything you can do, I can do better, as he actually jukes out Dallas Carter, then Pearson Capstick, as he be off to the races. Look at Saiba go, showing off those God-given wheels. But after a quick commercial break, the Carter Dallas show would continue with him performing a little bit of magic, looking like a young Houdini, somehow eluding hungry defenders for a hard-earned 28-yard gain. For one of the other BCFL Adam Jamboree games, with Abbotsford Black take on Chilliwack White, and before you can grab your popcorn from the microwave, Jackson D'Agostini runs a 10-yard hook to perfection, stumping Chilliwack White's defense. With wheels like D'Agostini, not even Usain Bolt would have a chance of catching this guy. So it's Chilliwack's turn, and they snap the ball before half the O-line is ready, so Isaiah Grant breaks 2 tackles, hides behind the referee for a moment, bursts to the sidelines, and turns on the Jets. But the objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. Abbotsford ball again, and someone didn't want to block Yapo Conte. Ouch! Great tackle by Yapo. Chilliwack gets the ball back, and, well, Christian Beck decides to put the team on his back. How many tackles can a person possibly break? I mean, honestly, this is sheer madness. It takes 8 guys to finally take him down. Great play, Christian. The ball goes right back into Isaiah Grant's hands, and this guy was just made to run. He darts up the middle and looks like he's going to go the distance, but the only person on planet Earth that can track him down is Jaden Sharma on the 2. Let's take a look at our Midget scoreboard now. Wow. Just wow. Sitting atop the Midget standings are the Stamps and Falcons with 14 points, while the Bears have 12, and the Giants and Spartans are deadlocked at 10. Taking a look at our Bantam scoreboard now. South Delta blanks North Langley. Abbotsford beats North Delta by 10. North Surrey stomps Chilliwack, and Victoria crushes Langley. And still one of the most dominant teams we've ever seen. South Delta is too good, it's not even fair. And while they aren't quite on the same wavelength, the Bears, Spartans, and Tigers are pretty darn good too. And taking a look at the junior Bantam matchups in the BCFL, the top two teams had no problem with the 3rd and 4th seeds. And with those results, the stage is set for the Valley Cup finals between the number 1 seed Mission Niners and the number 2 Meadow Ridge Knights, with that game taking place on Saturday, November 14th at McLeod Park. Now it's time for some Pee-wee scores from the BCCFA. I see a lot of zeros. When we come back from break, the UBC Thunderbirds host the Manitoba Bisons in the Hardy Cup semifinals.
The CFL and our partners at Football Canada want to make sure we keep growing, promoting, and investing in a safe game. Football Canada now requires all amateur coaches to be safe contact trained by 2017. By creating a standard of safety for all in our football community, we're making an already great game even better. Make sure your youth coach is safe contact trained, because making a safe game means making a better game.
Well, the UBC Thunderbirds had a massive game this weekend against a familiar foe, the Manitoba Bisons, who they played. This was their 3rd game this season. Did you get a chance to watch the game?
Yeah, I watched the game, and UBC looking to go to the Hardy Cup final for the first time since 2011. Ty, how did they fare?
Well, it was the game everyone was waiting for. UBC's first playoff game since the time of Julius Caesar, or so it felt. And what better way to host the traveling Manitoba Bisons than to play in classic Vancouver weather, freezing rain. Now let's take a look at the game from Thunderbird Stadium.
T-Birds head coach Blake Nill looking for his first playoff win at UBC. First cue, T-Birds strike. Second series for the Bisons, a second interception from Teo Dizar. Mitchell Barnett plucks Dizar. It leads to 8-yard major from Travell Pinto. UBC with an early lead. Very next series for the home side, Brandon Deschamps welcomes himself into the game. The one called Banger lives up to his nickname, bang his way into the end zone, and the T-Birds lead grows to 2 scores. Second half now, Marcus Davis shows why he's one of the best returners in the nation. Davis takes a punt 42 yards to the Manitoba 15, and one play later, Michael O'Connor hits Alex Morrison from 15 yards out. That makes it 39 blank T-Birds, and the route is on. Fourth cue, UBC adds a little salt in the Bison's wound. Dizar gets picked for a 4th time, the 2nd time by this man Mitchell Barnett. He takes it 55 yards to the house. UBC stuns the nation on national TV, taking this one by 42. UBC's offense was on point in this one, but a ton of credit has to be given to the defense. As mentioned earlier, T-Birds picked off Dizar 4 times while forcing 1 fumble, which UBC recovered, and sacked the Bison's pivot twice.
Welcome to the UBC Report. Joining me in studio is the man that was actually covering the game on the weekend, Gord and Randall. Gord, let's jump into it. From the get-go, this was a bit of a surprise, I must say. The thing that stood out for me is Travell Pinto basically got 50% of the yards he did on the season this game. How did that happen?
Yeah, I think that he was a big part of the UBC game plan, and I don't think that this was top of their mind, but the fact that Manitoba was another finalist for his services may have factored into it a little bit. Pinto looked electric from the start. He actually dropped his first reception of the game, which would have been a touchdown, adding even more to his yardage, but bounced back in a big way and was good for them in both special teams and offense in this game. Probably the best athlete on that offense, and a guy that Blake Nill absolutely loves. He really lit it up. And as for the result, I mean, I think I used the word flabbergasting on the broadcast. It was really, really surprising the way that UBC just ran roughshod over the Bisons.
It was very surprising. And another storyline here is first 4 games of the season, Deschamps was battling injuries, wasn't doing too much. Last 5 games of the season, including that playoff game, he has 587 yards, 6 touchdowns. What can you say about the play of Deschamps?
Well, he's the motor behind that offense. He's a banger. He can earn yards even when they're maybe not blocked up well in front of him. He's just a guy that, and he sets that physical tone for that offense. And they were really missing something without him. Marcus Davis, a guy who, as his backup, filled in for him, not really a between the tackles runner at all. He's more of a scat back type of guy. Took a big element out of their offense. And since they've gone back to Brandon Deschamps, I don't think it's a coincidence that they've been a lot more successful team on offense, a lot more explosive, and a lot more consistent on that side of the ball.
Let's flip the switch now and talk a little bit about the Hardy Cup final. Of course, Calgary has pretty much owned every team in the Canada West, except for this past weekend. They actually shown some signs of mortality, with Saskatchewan actually leading late in this one. What can UBC learn from Saskatchewan in order to beat the Beast and the Dinos?
Well, you know, this has turned into a bit of a recurring pattern for the Dinos, where they've rolled all over everybody in the regular season. Then when it comes to the playoffs, things are a lot tighter. Last year, they actually didn't even win the conference championship, despite dominating the regular season, much like they have this year. So it'll be interesting to see how this week goes. I think UBC is much more well prepared to tackle the Calgary Dinos this time. These teams have not met since week 1. UBC was still finding traction at that point in time. Coach Nill and Coach Barada were still trying to figure out what they had on offense. They just have grown a lot over the course of this season. And as we saw last week, and they made a statement saying, we are clearly ready to compete with the big boys in this conference. And I think that they have a much better shot. I look for it to be something of a 1 to 2 score game. I hope. I don't know if I can sit through another 7-score game like we saw this weekend.
Make sure to tune in Saturday on Global TV to watch the Hardy Cup. That's your UBC Report with Gord and Randall.
It's time for the CIS BCborn Player Report. This past weekend, we saw many BC boys participate in playoff games across the CIS. This couldn't be more true in the UBC game against Manitoba. The T-Birds have 52 BC-born players on their team, while the Manitoba Bisons have 18. You could bet that BC talent was on full display this past Saturday.
North Van native Mitch Barnett is my BC-born MVP this past weekend. He had 2 huge INTs, including this pick 6 dagger against Manitoba. Now here's a look at the rest of the BC-born players that had impact performances for their teams in the CIS playoffs.
Well, that about does it for us here at Touchdown BC. Adam, what games are you going to be watching this week?
I'm going to be watching probably from my home on my laptop. SportsCanada.tv is streaming the game, Mount Bougere taking on South Delta at Burnaby Lakes.
That's true, and there's also some huge community games coming up this weekend as well. And you can't forget UBC Calgary in the Hardy Cup.
That will be a one to watch on Global TV. Check it out.
He's Adam Cordick. I'm Ty Clark. We'll see you next week.
Touchdown BC is sponsored by